A cold wind swept across the open fields of eastern Ukraine, carrying with it the distant hum of engines and the faint echo of artillery far beyond the horizon. Under the cover of dawn, a Ukrainian reconnaissance team moved silently through the grass, their eyes fixed on a suspicious pattern of lights blinking across the ridge. What they were seeing wasn't random. It was deliberate, it was coordinated, and within minutes they realized the truth. A Russian aerial drone unit had set up a mobile base, preparing for another night of attacks, but this time, Ukraine was ready. The hunters were about to become the hunted. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Conflict Front Stories channel. Please subscribe and like my videos so you never miss the latest updates and deep dive explanations from global conflict zones. Today, we're breaking down how Ukraine managed to identify, track, and dismantle a Russian drone operation that had been responsible for several recent aerial threats. The story unfolds across both the open landscapes and the quiet interiors where operators, analysts, and commanders work behind the scenes to keep the country safe. The first signs of trouble began late in the evening when air defense sensors detected unusual flight patterns approaching from the northeast. These weren't typical reconnaissance drones. Their routes were calculated, their timing suspiciously precise. Exterior teams along the defensive corridor immediately took note, and within minutes, the information was relayed to the Interior Command Center, where analysts began piecing together the puzzle. The mood inside was intense but controlled. Short commands, fast data checks, and analysts leaning over screens illuminated the dim room. The unit knew this wasn't a single drone, it was a coordinated group. On the ground, Ukrainian forces in the field shifted into quiet observation mode. The terrain was uneven, with patches of forested areas broken by long stretches of farmland. As the sun settled fully into the horizon, the glow of the enemy's mobile setup flickered faintly against the distant tree line. The exterior scene was calm, but everyone knew the calm was temporary. Every soldier there was fully aware that drone units such as this had been used repeatedly to target infrastructure, logistics hubs, and sometimes even densely populated areas. Tonight, rejecting another such threat wasn't an option. It was a necessity. Inside the operations room, a young analyst cross-checked several communication intercepts. She noticed something unusual. Brief radio exchanges that repeated at exact intervals. That rhythm suggested remote command relays, and the signature matched equipment used by Russian mobile drone teams. The interior team began triangulating the signal while the exterior forces maintained their low visibility positions, not yet revealing that the enemy had been discovered. In the distance, one of the Ukrainian scouts adjusted his night vision optics. Through the green haze, he could see the silhouettes of support trucks and antenna masts. It wasn't a massive installation, but it was efficient enough to cause serious damage if allowed to continue. The sound of a generator hummed faintly, occasionally drowned out by the shifting wind. The team leader whispered into his radio, confirming visual contact. That confirmation triggered the next phase, coordinated disruption. Back inside the interior command room, commanders approved the deployment of an electronic warfare unit. These teams specialize in interfering with drone communications, cutting off navigation feeds, and disrupting the systems that guide them. Electronic warfare isn't dramatic to look at. There are no cinematic beams of energy or dramatic sparks. It's quiet and technical. Operators sit in compact rooms, adjusting frequency levels, scanning signals, and monitoring waves invisible to the eye but crucial on the battlefield. It was in one of those dimly lit interior rooms that the operation quietly began. Meanwhile, in the exterior environment, the electronic warfare vehicle rolled into position behind a small ridge, hidden from direct view. Its antennas unfolded, rising slowly like metal branches reaching toward the sky. The crew inside initiated system checks, confirming they had the right frequency bands locked. They waited for the order. When it came, it was only a single word. The disruption began immediately. A controlled pulse of interference swept across the target area. At first, nothing appeared to change. The enemy team continued moving normally, unaware that their units were losing connection. But within less than a minute, one of their drones began drifting off its intended path. Another failed to initiate its programmed ascent. A third never responded to launch commands. The Russian operators grew uneasy. They checked their equipment, rebooted systems, and changed channels, but the more they tried, the more chaotic their system became. From the exterior Ukrainian observation point, this confusion was clear. The enemy team scrambled around their trucks, attempting to manually override the failure, unaware that Ukrainian forces were closing in. Inside the command center, the interior staff monitored the incoming telemetry. They watched as the Russian controls slipped further into instability. Logs displayed degraded signals, unstable navigation, and complete command loss. This confirmed that the exterior electronic warfare team had succeeded in neutralizing the aerial threat. But the job wasn't finished yet. The enemy unit, although blind, was still intact. They could relocate, reset, or regroup. Ukraine needed to ensure that wouldn't happen. Under the cover of electronic interference, a specialized Ukrainian ground team advanced across the exterior terrain. They moved methodically, using depressions in the landscape for concealment. Despite the urgency, there was no unnecessary risk. Their mission wasn't to engage, only to disable the equipment and prevent further drone launches. As they approached, the flickering lights from the Russian trucks grew more erratic, matching the level of disruption inside their systems. The Russian team, now aware something was wrong beyond technical malfunction, attempted to pack up equipment. But with their drones non-functional and their communication frequencies unstable, their operation had effectively collapsed. The Ukrainian team could see them losing time, struggling to coordinate, and unable to establish even basic control links. The drone threat was already diminishing, minute by minute. Inside the Ukrainian Interior Coordination Office, commanders authorized the final step: isolate the unit and force them to abandon their position. This method avoided unnecessary escalation while ensuring the threat would not continue. Exterior Ukrainian vehicles maneuvered into strategic locations that prevented an organized withdrawal. When the Russian unit realized their escape routes were gone, they left behind several key components in their rush to evacuate. The Ukrainian ground team secured the area shortly after. What they found confirmed how well the electronic disruption phase had worked. Several drone launch frames sat inactive and misaligned. Portable control consoles showed black screens where drone feeds should have been. Navigation antennas were locked in error loops. The entire setup was rendered unusable without specialized repair teams, and even then the data storage and navigation timing had been overwritten by the interference pulse. The success of the operation didn't rely on dramatic destruction. Instead, it relied on precision, identifying the threat early, analyzing it accurately, using electronic systems effectively, and applying coordinated pressure that forced the enemy to leave their equipment behind. It was a modern example of how technology and intelligence can override brute force. Later, inside the interior briefing room, analysts and officers reviewed the operation. A large digital map displayed the drone unit, its previous routes, highlighting how many times it had approached sensitive zones. The commander emphasized how crucial it was to detect these mobile groups before they executed more attacks. Everyone in the room understood the stakes. Every drone neutralized meant fewer risks for frontline forces and civilians alike. Every disrupted aerial unit preserved critical infrastructure that could support thousands of people. The story continued with the careful transport of the captured equipment to a secured location. In a brightly lit interior examination lab, technicians began analyzing the hardware. They studied the drone components, navigation chips, and antenna systems. Each detail provided valuable insights into the evolving tactics of Russian drone warfare. These findings would help Ukraine adapt and stay ahead in future encounters. Meanwhile, exterior patrol units maintained heightened surveillance. The landscape stretched out under a cold but clear sky, the morning sun reflecting off frost on the ground. Even with the drone threat removed, vigilance remained essential. Ukraine knew new units might attempt to move in again. But for the moment, the air was quiet, the horizon calm, and the team could appreciate their success, even if only briefly. Inside the operations room, one of the junior analysts replayed the intercepted communications. Although the Russian operators never realized how completely they were compromised, the intercepts captured the rising tension in their voices as their systems collapsed around them. The interior room filled with a sense of pride, not from victory over an opponent, but from the knowledge that they prevented further danger to Ukrainian communities. As exterior teams prepared for their next rotations, they reported that the drone corridor remained secure. The electronic warfare specialists packed their equipment, restoring the frequencies to normal levels after confirming the threat was fully neutralized. Their role, though unseen, had been decisive. Throughout the following hours, the story spread across military channels. The drone team that had been responsible for repeated threats was no longer operational. Ukraine had not only disrupted the attackers, but gained access to equipment that would help them defend against future aerial operations. In the final interior briefing of the day, the commanding officer summarized the operation. He spoke calmly and concisely. The success wasn't due to any one team. It was the result of cooperation, coordination, and discipline. Analysts, scouts, electronic warfare personnel, and ground teams each played a critical role. And while the war continued to bring unpredictable challenges, this operation demonstrated that Ukraine could adapt quickly, counter threats effectively, and protect its territory with both intelligence and precision. As dusk settled again over the exterior landscape, the quiet fields no longer echoed with the hum of hostile drones. Instead, the wind carried the soft sound of Ukrainian patrols moving steadily along their routes, confident that one more threat had been removed. And that brings us to the end of today's in-depth explanation. The disruption of the Russian aerial unit wasn't just a tactical success. It was another reminder of how crucial intelligence and coordination are in modern warfare. Thank you for watching and supporting Conflict Front Stories. Please subscribe and like the video to help the channel grow, and stay tuned for more frontline analyses and updates.